said, my name is Kevin Siff. I am the project coordinator for Gallery 72 for the City of Atlanta's Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. I'm also an artist, a writer, a retired punk rock singer, still rap every now and then. But I'm happy to be a panel's moderator for this panel dealing with Black craft consciousness in the comics. And what we want to do with this panel is talk about the creative souls who have contributed to the, what I call the second renaissance of the African-American comic industry. Also look at the reasons that motivated them to want to pursue these endeavors and create creatively in this medium. And where do they think the medium is headed and what can be added to it. So we're going to get the ball rolling because I know a lot of you have been waiting patiently for us to get started. And what I'm going to do is allow the incredibly phenomenal individual next to me to introduce himself, let you know who he is, and then we're just going to get right into it. So, you got it.
All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Dawood. My name is Dawood Anyabwile. I'm the illustrator and co-creator of the Brother Man comic book series. Name of my company is Big City Entertainment. I've actually been into art all my life, and the Brother Man property was actually created in 1989 and released in 1990. So we're actually 25 years in, and just recently released this graphic novel here called Brother Man Revelation in January of this year. It's already received 2 book awards for Best Artist and Story of the Year in the Philadelphia Glyph Awards. From my background, throughout the 80s, I used to do custom airbrushing in Philly, where I'm originally from. So my career pretty much stemmed from me just knowing this is what I want to do. I want to do art, and kind of paving my own way in having my own airbrush shops in North Philadelphia, East Orange, New Jersey, Chester, PA, and I used to work at the Gallery Mall in Philly prior to releasing the Brother Man comic series in 1990 in New York City. So the series had, in a short period of time, went from basically nobody knowing it from 1990 to 94 to selling 750,000 books, and that's independently. That's just my family and I just cranking it out, doing our own thing, going up against the grain. And at that time, there was no Black comic movement. There weren't really a lot of Black artists for me to kind of pull from in terms of how do you do this, how do you do that. You know, there's no internet, so we were kind of like paving our own path. Since then, I've gained experience working in production studios in New York, like MTV Animation, where I worked on a show called Daria, and did a couple Pink Panther CD-ROM games. Then I moved out to LA, where I was a character designer on the Rugrats and the Wild Thornberries for approximately 2 years during the high point of those shows. And then I left Hollywood, came to Atlanta, and eventually started working at Turner Studios, where I was doing like production art for Cartoon Network, TNT, CNN, TBS, Turner Sports, and a host of other networks. And come to 2 years ago, decided, you know, it's time to bring Brother Man back. Even though it was never abandoned, it was like something that had to sit on the back burner as life takes place. But one thing I noticed was working in all these studios, I was able to gain a lot of knowledge and experience that I can apply to my own independent property, and thus leading to doing this book. And also one last thing was I did another graphic novel for HarperCollins called Monster, which was an adaptation from Walter Dean Meyer's classic book by the same name, novel by the same name. And the adaptation was done by my brother Guy, who's sitting right there. He's the writer and co-creator of the Brother Man comic series, and also he did the adaptation for the graphic novel Monster. So that's kind of like the background. There's a lot of things that I had planned. The reason why I came to Atlanta was to build my own production studio. I didn't really want to just get caught up in the Hollywood system, or any of these other network systems. I mean, it was a great opportunity, met some great people, but you know, we need to have our own institutions, you know, that focus on us and create opportunities for us.
Definitely, definitely. So, what I love about your career, though, is that you are almost an embodiment of what has needed to happen for the past 25 plus years, you and your brother, in creating an independent, do-it-yourself almost version of taking on this industry. And it's not even so much as taking on the industry, as finding a way to creatively add your spin on the industry, which is basically what we want to speak about. So when you get to the roots of your creativity, you talk about the art that led up to you doing the comics. Can you go into a little more detail historically about the craft that honed your skills before you even started the Brother Man comic, and how did that come about?
Wow, that goes back to, you know, and a lot of times I'm not asked that in interviews. We did tons of interviews. I mean, we were written up in USA Today, just about every major US paper. Arsenio Hall did a spot on us, America's Most Wanted. But a lot of times they talk about the focus is on Brother Man, the comic book, but not like our history of who we were coming up.
That's important.
Yeah, that's what molds who we are. For me, you know, the home we grew up in, you know, I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My mother and father, who since passed away, which was one reason why the comic series ended. But my father was an activist, and he worked at the university, so he was always about higher education. And my mother was a public school teacher, Philadelphia public school teacher, and they both cultivated art in the home. So, you know, since I was little, you know, that art and writing and music and all that stuff, that was always a part of the home. So
would you say it was coming out of maybe that black consciousness, black power movement of the 60s?
Right. And like when we go into our basement, my dad had like, you know, like a library. It was almost like the Black History Library, you know, posters of Malcolm X and you know, just that energy was there. You know what I mean? And my father was an activist, so he was kind of like a frontliner. You know, he's kind of like a no nonsense person. So for me coming up, you know, I had my share of comic books when I was from like 3rd grade to 7th grade. I had to sit down with my father one day, and I'm gonna consolidate the story to where my dad broke down a lot of the imagery in the comics that I was absorbing. And for me back then, I was saving my lunch money to buy these comic books. I mean, literally like starving myself, you know. And you know, I would go to school, my friends say, hey man, you don't never have any money. But the thing is I was just saving my lunch money so I could buy comic books. And so when I had that sit down with my dad and he was really breaking down these images in the comics, it kind of like, and at that time, you know, I was a little radical. You know, I was like, you know, wait a minute, I'm starving myself for this. You know, so I took all my comics, and my dad had a fire going one night, and I threw all my comics in the fireplace. And I was pretty much done with it. At that time, there was no black comic movement. There weren't really a lot of black artists for me to kind of pull from in terms of how do you do this, how do you do that. You know, there was no internet, so we were kind of like paving our own path. Since then, I've gained experience working in production studios in New York, like MTV Animation, where I worked on a show called Daria, and did a couple of Pink Panther CD-ROM games. Then I moved out to LA, where I was a character designer on the Rugrats and the Wild Thornberries for approximately 2 years during the high point of those shows. And then I left Hollywood, came to Atlanta, and eventually started working at Turner Studios, where I was doing like production art for Cartoon Network, TNT, CNN, TBS, Turner Sports, and a host of other networks. And come to 2 years ago, decided, you know, it's time to bring Brother Man back. Even though it was never abandoned, it was like something that had to sit on the back burner as life takes place. But one thing I noticed was working in all these studios, I was able to gain a lot of knowledge and experience that I can apply to my own independent property.
So what I would like you to do is give everyone a background of who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into your family history and what shaped your consciousness to the creative person that you are today.
Okay, my name is Afua Nyoki Richardson. I am a comic book creator. I've done work with Marvel, DC, Image, Random House, Dark Horse. I'm the 2011 recipient of the Nina Simone Award for Artistic Excellence for being one of the few Black women. And thank you. It's an honor to even be mentioned with her name because of all that she's done. I'm still learning about who she was and the things that she's done, and I'm always open and interested to learning about her story instead of his story. Not to dishonor others, but his story is told by the victor and not always the story. But in addition to that, I am an activist and a mentor, a voice actor, a singer, a musician, and an actress. Yeah.
Your earliest manifestations of creativity and who nurtured that?
Definitely my father. My father is a physicist, he's a physics teacher, and he helped develop the research that built MRIs, and goodness, he helped develop string theory as well. He's a very, very intelligent man, and he is also the founder of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Coast Guard. And he was one of like 8 men at the time, 8 black men who were allowed to gain the rank of lieutenant commander, which was not really something at the time that was really achievable for black men. But he was an oil painter and a sculptor, and as a little girl, I never saw him paint. Not one tree. And he was so sad all the time. But he would give me the tools, and he would just sort of leave me to my own devices. He gave me my record.
What I'm hearing and what I kind of come to understand is there's a lot of money, a lot of technology, and that involves art, and it's completely outstripping the community that's left with like pens and pencils and sketchbooks and stuff like that. Like, I can go back home and I sketch out my ideas, but at the end of the day, if I don't know how to use all these computers and all this technology, like, man, I'm not ever going to be able to feel. You know, that's how I feel, how it feels, how it's kind of coming out, you know? So I wanted to like hear a little bit about that, because I mean there is, whether or not you want to like say that, there is a technology gap between those who have and those who don't, you know, and like it's not that there aren't creators. I teach creators all the time. It's just about access to the technology and the access to people who know how to use the technology. That should be super frustrating, you know. So I just want to know about that.
Anyone want to tackle that?
There was a period of time in my life when I was homeless. My mom, unfortunately, is mentally ill, and it was really hard to just have any peace in the house, just at all, with someone who's just raging, just constantly. So my dad went in one direction, she went in another, and I had none. I was sleeping on the subway. I would sleep in a park. You know, I had my flute with me. I never begged for money. I would stay with friends, stay on their couches, and I was always trying, always pushing. You know, I never let my current circumstances be my title. I wasn't a hobo. You know, I wasn't homeless. I was a flute player. I did what I repeated. I wasn't what I was. And that's what I kind of had to tell myself, even though I was incredibly depressed and incredibly sad a lot of the time. And I had some amazing friends who took care of me because I took care of them. And I was really lucky because a lot of people don't have that and they fall through the cracks. So a lot of my computers were hand-me-down computers. And anything that I could learn how to do, I desperately tried. I was just like, man, I'm going to the barbershop. Can you teach me how to cut hair? I'll learn. So like, while I'm cutting my hair bald, I'll cut it. The will, that is something that I saw not a lot of people have. They want it. They want it instantly. They want it automatically. They want a big break. It doesn't happen that way. They weren't afraid to put in the work. They were afraid of this really long journey, which is what it is. And I wasn't. Because I knew that if I played this thing 20 times over, then I would get it right. And I had people who believed in me, who were willing to give me a chance. Where I saw others who felt very defeated and decided that the method that they wanted to go was to self-cook or sell themselves. And I couldn't blame them because they needed to eat. But that wasn't my choice. I was like, I have these abilities, I have a mind, I need to use it. I have to figure something out. So I started making phone calls, I started figuring things out. I started playing my flute. Somebody threw a $100 bill in it. So I got a P.O. box. I was just like, $28 for the year. I have an address. I can get a job. So I started getting jobs. Small jobs at first, and then I got hand-me-down computers. I would go to the library. You know, I would find a way. I really wanted to. I really had to use my mind, even though I was like hungry, hopeless, had headaches out the wazoo. But I really wanted to draw. I really wanted to make music. And nothing, no one, nothing was going to stop me. And that's what ends up happening. They lose their hope. And that's why art is so powerful, because it provides an alternative. You'll hear a song, and it'll take you someplace else. And I would have to play it because I wouldn't have any batteries for my Walkman. So I'd make these alternatives. And just like you were talking about, critical mass. Critical mass. How much do you want it? How much do you need this? You have to tell yourself, I have to make this art or I'm going to die. And in some cases it was true. Because the death of our spirit, the death of our philosophy, the death of our culture is what's at stake. And it's up to us, the cosplayers, writers, filmmakers. We have to do this. We have to be polymaths. We have to be mathematicians. We have to be businessmen. We have to encourage each other. We have to expand